Now, for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers this morning, as we try to make sense of it, then look no further than Yolanda Roberts. Good morning, Yolanda Roberts.
Good morning, Bengashiru. Let's make sense of the headlines indeed. How are you today?
Well, I'm good. Just a bit apprehensive of Nigeria's democratic culture and the state of our transition.
I think many people are.
Nothing so good to write home about.
That's right. I think many people are. Especially with what we saw happen weekend with these APC primaries.
Shambolic.
Absolutely.
And atrocious.
That's the perfect word. Well, let's look into the details because that's part of our top stories for the day today. Starting off with This Day newspaper. 2027, Akpabio, Barao, Bamidele, Kalu, Ndume and others win the APC primary tickets. Now, that's a very big story that we're going to look at later on, and it's across most of our dailies today. But as well in This Day, another big story. Tinubu says killing of abducted Oyo teacher is barbaric and we are working to arrest the criminals. Promises timely rescue of other victims and says the bandits and collaborators will be apprehended, and urges the National Assembly to expedite action on the enactment of a state police law. Will not give in to terror but ready to listen to their demands. This has been declared by Sheyi Makinde. And don't let Musa become another Chibok, northern senators warn. As well as Nigeria-US military killed 20 ISIS and ISWAP fighters as target operations continue. Let's move on to another newspaper, which is the Daily Independent. Tinubu urges National Assembly to fast-track state police bill and condemns the beheading of abducted Oyo teacher, vows the rescue of victims. Another story there, court grants Al-Rufai 100 million naira bail and seizes his passport. As well, a jury begins deliberations in a bribery trial of Dizani Alison Madueke. Senate says Bamidele, Oshomole, Ndume Barao and others have secured the APC ticket, and the party disqualifies 3 serving senators and 41 others. Let's take a look now at what's happening in New Telegraph. CAN, that's the Christian Association of Nigeria, says kidnappers are turning Nigerian classrooms into hunting grounds. Oyo teachers protest colleagues' abduction and killing, and they continue to shut schools. Tinubu condemns the killing and assures of the rescue of the others. APC senatorial primaries also in the front of a New Telegraph, as well as Leadership newspaper, if we can pull that up. Makinde vows the rescue of remaining abductees as bandits behead a teacher. Such a terrible story that's making the headlines across many of our local newspapers today. Let's take a look quickly at what's going on in the international papers, starting off with The Guardian. It seems like there's more updates, Benga, on the deadly outbreaks that's going on with the Ebola virus that seems to have no vaccine at the moment. That's another top story in international papers there in The Guardian, where it reads deadly outbreaks, more frequent and more damaging. Also in international news, The Times, Burnham far ahead of Starmer in Labour votes. Now, it's said that 2/3 want the new PM by next general election. Oh no, terrible times for Keir Starmer, as his time in office is weighing very much in the balance. Let's go back and take a look at what's going on in our local newspapers and take a look at our headlines in detail. APC Senate primaries as well. Daniel Amosun Rochas crash. Abiodun Uzodinma and Bello win. Now, APC's 2027 senatorial primaries turned into a full-blown political earthquake, with big men falling and new power players rising. Former governors serving senators and party heavyweights were swept off the political chessboard as consensus deals and backroom moves shook the party. In Delta State, political titans collided hard. Ifeanyi Okowa crushed Ned Nwoko, while Ede Dafionan humbled Ovie Omo Agege in a landslide showdown. Meanwhile, to the surprise of many, Yaya Bello roared back into relevance in Kogi Central, scoring a thunderous victory that signaled a major political comeback. Some APC bigwigs didn't even step into the ring. Former Ogun governors Benga Daniel and Ibikunle Amosun stayed away as consensus politics took over. Edo APC primaries descended into confusion, with two different camps claiming victory, turning the exercise into a political marketplace of drama and accusations. Meanwhile, in Ebonyi State, what started as a peaceful exercise ended in chaos after journalists were allegedly attacked. A massive wave of disqualifications rocked the party as 44 aspirants were blocked from contesting, sparking outrage, protests, and cries of manipulation. Benga, despite the chaos, the APC machine kept moving, with figures like Godswill Akpabio, Ali Ndume, Adams Oshomole, and Bamidele Opeyemi cruising through as party kingmakers flex their muscles ahead of 2027. And we still have more unfolding as this week moves along. What do you make of all of this so far between what we've been seeing from Saturday up until yesterday?
I think it's a parody of when you said something keeps moving. Sometimes, philosophers have debated when something is in a constant state of flux, if we are actually experiencing change or it's just that internal change, that mystery of what we call change. But I want to say that it's rather unfortunate because we raised the alarm here of the potential landmines in our democratic landscape, starting from the Electoral Act and the defects in the Electoral Act and some of the practices that defines internal democracy within the parties. I think that we need to go back to the drawing board, honestly. We cannot present this as something above board. And why do I say so? Section 153 gives INEC the powers to conduct elections, to set up the guidelines. And I think that if the National Assembly should be coming, it should come with their oversight, the power of oversight in terms of the finances and some regulations that extends to the real statutory mandate of INEC. Why am I saying this? How do you expect politicians to conduct internal elections all in the name of primaries when you have interested parties? So it's obvious that we've seen a situation where what is meant to be a test of grassroots influence and party popularity, internal party popularity, turned out to be so shambolic and atrocious.
Yes.
And why am I saying this? I think that we need to go back to the drawing board and restructure our internal democracy, because charity begins at home. The internal democracy, the primaries are the defining corner pictures of our political transition, because there is very little choice left to the electorate when the internal primaries have been compromised at that level. So what am I saying? I think that possibly the INEC needs to be unbundled. Some part of INEC should take charge of the primaries and another should take charge of the main election. And why am I saying this? We have interested parties. So why do you think that, because the old tenet of democracy is based on three tripods of integrity. One, the transparency of and credibility of the process, the capacity of the INEC, and also the vote of public confidence. And that is why we keep having this voter apathy syndrome in this part of Africa. Because from the roots, the democracy seems to be under siege. That's the honest truth. And that's why we have seen even people so scared, experienced politicians so scared of even attending the party primaries because of safety. So a lot of concerns that needs to be addressed, because INEC cannot continue to play the role of a spectator at primaries, the observer role. That is what the Constitution provides for INEC. And I think that a lot of this provision is being exploited against the principle and gains of democracy in Nigeria. And there is a need for us to go back to the drawing board, change this thing, take away the responsibility of conducting primaries from party leaders that are obviously interested candidates or parties to to this arrangement and give it to a neutral umpire that would regulate all this rubbish that we've seen so far.
And you're right, you know, there's so many concerns that need to be addressed at this point in time. But Benga, one can only wonder, is it not too late? This one that the elections are already here, you know, we're already at the heels of 2027. Is it not too late for these massive changes to be put into place? One can only wonder.
Yeah, when we take a utilitarian assessment of the situation, that is the cost-benefit analysis of the higher good. If we're going to gamble away our future for the next 4 years, I think if it's going to take us 3 months to re-evaluate the situation and correct most of the obvious defects in our electoral draft, I think it's worth the while.
I think it's worth the while as well. Let's take a look at another top headline in the Vanguard newspaper, if we can pull that up. Actually, this headline is on the front of many, and it's basically an analysis and a breakdown and a reporting of the Oyo school kidnapping. We have outrage spreads after teachers beheading, and Tinubu vows to rescue. With another headline reading, we're ready to listen to the abductors, Makinde, that's in New Telegraph, while also in Vanguard, teachers and students protest over the abductions and the killings. Now, the horror has deepened after a viral video showed a maths teacher, Michael Oyedokun, beheaded by the kidnappers. A shock that sent anger boiling across Nigeria yesterday. Now, Governor Seyi Makinde said that the government is ready to listen to the abductors and demands if it will help bring the children and the teachers home alive. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu described the attack as barbaric and ordered a full-scale security operation to hunt down the bandits and their local helpers. Security forces have turned Ogbomosho into a rescue war room, with police, soldiers, Amotekun and other agencies joining hands to save the hostages. 6 suspected informants have been arrested after security agents tracked phone calls allegedly linking them to the bandits' movement through the forest. Now, the bandits are reportedly using the kidnapped children as human shields, making rescue operations extremely dangerous and delicate. Fear has swallowed the community whole, with many schools standing empty as teachers protested and parents keeping their children far from classrooms, as we spoke about yesterday. It's almost as if we were, you know, almost looking into what was going to happen based on what we've seen happen continuously. Now, from captivity, teachers and school leaders begged the government, churches and Nigerians for help, as the cries of frightened children echoed through some of those viral videos. Now, Benga, before I come to you, let me go to a few things that Governor Seyi Makinde said. He said that the hunt for the abducted students and teachers is still in full swing, with security forces working around the clock. He also described the situation as being fluid and as it being difficult, meaning that the rescue mission is full of so much uncertainty. He also urged residents to become the government's extra eyes and ears, saying that any strange movement or suspicious activity should be reported immediately. The governor struck a defiant tone, declaring that Oyo State would not bow its head to terror or allow criminals to rule through fear. At the same time, he opened the door for dialogue, saying that the government is ready to listen to the abductors' demands if it will help free the children safely. That last statement is a little bit worrying, you know. It shows that we are in a desperate situation, Benga, where now the governor is saying that we are open to dialogue and we are open to listen to what the abductors' demands are, if that means that these children and teachers will be brought back to their homes safely. What do you make of all of this? You know, we've been analyzing the story yesterday, and this is an event that happened on Friday. These are 3 different schools in Oyo State struck by such destruction.
Indeed, a desperate polity that cries out for intervention.
Yes.
And you look at the situation. Ogbomosho is over 2 hours drive from Ibadan. We have made this At the risk of sounding like a broken record, we've made this statement. We've reiterated this fact of the porosity of ungoverned territories. I remember the last major abduction last year in November 21, 2025. Our reporter Charles Eruka left a very resounding and very poignant statement in Papiri,
Niger State,
when he said there is no guarantee that this would not reoccur again. It shows that we really do not have that structure. We really do not have the capacity to address this recurring menace. Everyone knows that the nation faces an existential threat in form of asymmetric warfare. So now, for those of us that have been arguing about advocating strongly for state policing, may I ask a rhetorical question? Because I understand that the president has deployed a special squad for the rescue mission, and I wonder how many of them really understand the roots of the forest in Ogbomosho. So when we talk about state policing, we don't just wake up. It's not a brainwave. It's an in-depth understanding of the fact that security threat takes a geopolitical coloration and dimension. That's why in the Northeast, you have the violent extremists. In the North Central, Northwest, you have the rampage of banditry. In the Southeast, you have the separatist movements. So, and unfortunately, this menace is taking its toll and finding its way down to the South. But again, there is the issue of responsibility and accountability. This thing is happening and no one is taking responsibility. How do we maximize, what is the level of our response to intelligence? We talk about intelligence integration. Now, on accountability, 2014, and I'm tired of saying this, the former British Prime Minister Gordon Brown initiated the Safe School Initiative, which comprised of the perimeter fencing, the communal intelligence integration, and the response system, and also so many key factors in which the chairman of Arise News also contributed to that initiative.
Yes, you said
By
so.
2014 to 2020, there was another follow-up in that. There was a build-up in that Safe School Initiative that they were able to raise $30 million. Then by 2023, there was a national response plan that $122 million was raised. So what has changed? How many schools have undergone perimeter fencing and also communal intelligence integration? How many schools have that surveillance network? Just a few months ago, in March, President Tinubu promised to donate 5,000 cable communication network, CCTV, in Plateau State. The traditional rulers reminded him after he donated the 2 billion naira. So it questions the commitment. It's not about condemning and blowing grammar and calling it barbaric that we want to. Lives are being lost.
That's
We
right.
cannot get used to it. We resist every unspoken attempt, every subtle attempt to get used to this menace. It's completely unacceptable, and our response is most uncharitable to this to this menace. So it's something that speaks about lack of responsibility, lack of accountability, a lack of political will in addressing this issue. And we talk about state policing. It is now that the president is now urging the National Assembly. And I've not seen that will, because when he wants to borrow money, we see the overnight and speedy passage of that bill. But when it comes to state policing, there's a lot of hesitation, there's a lot of bureaucratic pathology and administrative bottlenecks that is being deployed to this process as if it's a rocket science. It's not a rocket science.
Yeah, very
It's a
well
necessity.
pointed out. Very well pointed out. And it seems like it seems to be a deeper slope every single time. Thank you for also reminding us of, what happened in Papiri 6 months ago in Niger State. I think it's still fresh
Indeed.
on the minds of many people because it was really a traumatic experience for the nation as a whole. Well, let's take a look at another headline in Daily Independent, and that is on the ICPC with the El Rufai case. And the headline reads, others in custody aware of access control protocol. Now, the ICPC has pushed back hard against claims that former Kaduna Governor Nasir El Rufai was being starved or cut off from his family while in custody. The drama erupted after a viral video showed El Rufai's wife accusing the agency of blocking her from bringing food to her husband. The anti-corruption agency said that the claims were false and misleading, insisting that strict visiting rules apply to everyone inside its facility. According to the ICPC, visitors are only allowed between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. Once the clock strikes late, the gates close. The commission said El Rufai's family had already visited him several times that same day, dropping food in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening as well. Official records include visitor logbooks, which were presented as proof that the family was not shut out as claimed. The ICPC also pointed out that El Rufai's wife admitted in her own video that she arrived around 7 p.m. That's 30 minutes after visiting hours had closed. Because El Rufai is a high-profile political figure, the agency said it must maintain tight security around him, which is true. Now, the commission denied claims that medical personnel were blocked, saying that they only asked for identification and security clearance before allowing access. ICPC further revealed that El Rufai had recently been allowed to visit both his dentist and his eye doctor under official escort, insisting he was not being denied medical care or basic human rights as previously claimed. Meanwhile, yesterday, a federal high court in Abuja also granted El Rufai bail at a whopping 100 million naira. Justice Joyce Abdul Malik made it very clear that this was no free pass as the conditions of bail were tight. Anyone standing as El Rufai's surety must live in Abuja's elite Maitama or Asokoro districts. The surety must also hand over the original land documents of a property to the court. The court insisted that the surety must be a senior federal civil servant or grade level 17 or above. To prove financial strength, the surety must show bank confirmed salary payments and swear an affidavit of means before the court. El Rufai was also ordered to surrender all his international passports, effectively clipping his wings from leaving the country. The court demands extra paperwork, including tax clearance certificates and official verification. The strict conditions are a signal that the court is treating the case like a high-stakes national security matter, with every move being closely watched. So, Benga, we have two sides of the same coin here. On one hand, we have El Rufai's wife and family claiming that they're not being allowed to see him. And on the other hand, we have this 100 million naira bail that we saw yesterday with this huge and very, difficult list of things to fulfill. Now, the ICPC has been very thorough in putting out their statements and their conditions and saying that you can't come at 7 p.m. when you know that visiting hours ended at 6:30. What do you make of this entire controversial matter that has been unfolding since he was first arrested in February, taken in custody of the EFCC? If you remember, we discussed this here and we were talking about how it was done on his birthday, the 16th of February, and now we are all the way into May. What do you make of all of these facts?
I stand with the facts that the law is no respecter of anyone. But as much as that stands, I think I am a staunch advocate that that every prosecution must be devoid of a prosecution of detention. It must be devoid of. It must ensure fair hearing. and it must be devoid of a political vendetta.
Right.
And you look at this, it's quite laughable and very spurious that you have a court demanding a 100 million naira bill from a senior civil servant. The highest level in the federal civil service is grade level 17. That's the position of a director, because the position of a permanent secretary is an appointment by the president himself from the crop of directors. So the average level of the average remuneration of a director is about 605,000 naira. So in a year, that's about 7-point-something million naira. So it's going to take over 15 years to raise 100 million naira. So that defies every sense of logic, every sense of reasoning. It defies critical reasoning. That I think the judiciary should stop and what is called argumentum ad ignorantiam, that's appealing to ignorance. Then again, on the issue of the state of welfare of Malam El-Rufai, every Nigerian Section 34 provides for the right of human dignity. And there is also in treating a criminal case, there is Section 36, subsection 5 that talks about that provides for the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. And also Section 36, subsection 5 provides that's the provision of the status of being the presumption of innocence, and subsection 35 provides for his personal liberty. So anything that runs foul of this it clearly undermines the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So I think it's getting 90 days in detention is beyond a reasonable time limit as defined by the Constitution in treating or prosecuting a suspected criminal case. So I think that the judiciary is a professional institution. It's an institution that demands a lot of integrity and transparency, and we should see that in prosecuting or the trial of every case in Nigeria.
All right, Benga, let's analyze now, before we go, the international news with the Ebola updates with what's going on in DR Congo. And we seem to have some updates from what we discussed yesterday. The death toll has increased since yesterday's report, now with over 100 people already killed in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, this headline is on the front of The Guardian as well as the New Telegraph, so that has more information there. But now health officials are saying that more than 390 people are now suspected to have caught the virus, and raising fear to a much bigger disaster. Now, yesterday we saw the World Health Organization sounding the global alarm, and now there seems to be more updates with an American doctor working in Congo who has tested positive after treating patients, and several other Americans are now being evacuated under tight security. Benga, I'm going to come back to you because I want to know what that chuckle was about concerning this headline. Now, countries around the world are scrambling to shut the door off the virus, with airport screenings, travel restrictions, and contact tracing now being in full swing. President Donald Trump spoke up and said that the deadly Ebola outbreak in Congo is worrying, but insisted that the virus has not crossed into America's borders, which I believe is his priority, making sure that it stays in Africa. As the World Health Organization sounded the global alarm, the U.S. moved swiftly to tighten the airport screening, as I just said before, and health officials are actually treating this outbreak like a ticking time bomb, racing to stop the virus from spreading beyond Africa's doorstep. It seems like at this point, Benga, it's each man for himself. Each country is looking out for their own. We reported earlier on that the American doctor was being flown to Germany for treatment and many other things, but we're not hearing much more besides the death toll, which is rising at such a fast pace. Yesterday it was 80 people, and now overnight it has jumped to 100 people who have already been killed in the DRC.
It's very unfortunate. You were asking for my chuckle because an American doctor has been infected Peter Stafford,
Yes.
and been flown to Germany. And again, we see the U.S. president maintaining that to your Tento Africa stance, that it's been unnecessarily escalated. This is a professional report by the World Health Organization, and for U.S. president to maintain that stance smacks of a bit somehow recklessness on his part, and a kind of medical gamble that he is taking, because this is something that has a potential of being a global pandemic, and by that time I hope it will not be too late. So it's something that calls for a global response. The World Health Organization declared it as an international health emergency, and there is a need for world leaders to rise up to this very deadly spread. You talked about, as of yesterday, it was within the range of 100, but now we're talking about cases that have risen to about close to 400 now, 390. So I think that, again, Nigeria needs to wake up and do a reassessment of how ready is Nigeria for this medical health emergency. 2014, Aliko Dangote donated $1.2 million, and they were able to raise $2.2 million. So what happens to this in terms of creating a health emergency structure, a health emergency fund? I leave it at that because we've overrun our time.
That's fine. Well, those were
Very
your
stubborn.
headlines on the newspaper review.